My stepdaughter didn't invite me to her wedding to make room for her father, who had abandoned her, even though I had paid for the entire wedding and raised her throughout her life. I met my wife soon after she divorced her husband, more than 20 years ago. The reason for the divorce was basically that when he found out he would have a daughter, he packed his bags and went to another state, asking her never to contact him again and that he simply didn't want to be a father and didn't want those responsibilities. My wife didn't argue, just accepted it and cut off contact with him. When I met my stepdaughter, I accepted her as my daughter instantly. I knew that baby wasn't mine, but I decided to raise her as if she were. I was the one who taught her to ride a bike, I who educated her, I who created memories with her, and so on. She always called me dad, but I always made it clear to her that her biological father was not me. I was proud of who my daughter had become, and when she recently announced that she was going to marry her current boyfriend, I supported her and told her that I would help her with anything she needed. A few weeks later, she said she wanted me to pay for the wedding. To me, she was my daughter, so of course, I agreed, and she told me that I would walk her down the aisle, so of course, that made my day. The whole problem started in the following days when out of nowhere, my wife told me that her ex-husband had contacted her and he was in town and he wanted to talk to my daughter. I was against this idea, but I couldn't simply deny my daughter the right to simply meet her biological father. To my surprise, when they met, they hugged, she cried, and it was as if she had never had a father in her life. I was kind of sad about it, but I tried to understand the reaction. After all, he was her real father. The bigger problem was on the day of the wedding, where I had the biggest disappointment of my life. My wife had entered first since I had problems at work and had to make a quick call before, but when I tried to enter, I was stopped by the security guard right away. I said I was the bride's father, but he said that by her orders, he couldn't let me in, and he handed me a letter. I left the line, and when I read the letter, I simply couldn't believe it. She said she loved me and respected what I had done for her all these years, but I simply wasn't her real father, and she wouldn't let me in because her real father would walk her down the aisle, not me, and she preferred him not to see me to avoid making him uncomfortable. I started crying right away and asked for a taxi to go home because I was in no condition to drive. My wife started calling me, but I think when she saw my daughter being walked down the aisle by her biological father, my wife understood what had happened. After a few hours in bed, I decided to just accept what had happened. Not only will I remove my daughter from my inheritance, but I will also no longer pay for her wedding, college, car, etc. I know she will have difficulties because of this, and I know she won't like being out of my inheritance, but in my view, she chose the father she wants to have, and it wasn't me, and I will respect that. She will probably come desperate to talk to me when she finds out all this, but honestly, I don't want to see her for a long time after all this. You can now check if there's a part 2 by pressing share and more.